All right, let's start over. Thanks, everyone. Saved me a whole bunch of time there. All right, thanks for tuning in this fine Friday. So we have, let's see, what did I just say? I said that since we last checked in yesterday morning, we had Bitcoin break its sideways range bearish right before the stock market opened, and then the stock market bulls took over 2 days in a row. And it's been a very strong 2 days in stocks, probably the strongest 2 day in a row period that we've seen in 2.5, 3 weeks. So we are seeing Bitcoin with a notably bearish correlation to the broader stock market. And that is ideal for bears. And obviously it's not ideal for bulls. Right now the NASDAQ is testing this resistance level, the high of the last bounce attempt. We're right there at that point. We're close to seeing the highest levels that we've seen in over 3 weeks. So again, there is a little bit of a shift that is underway right now. And if we just look back at last time, fairly similar to how the last bounce took place. We had a bounce, higher low, lower high, lower low with no follow through into a 2.5 week long ripper of a bounce. Here, it's a bit different, but very similar. You can see it's a very similar pattern, just condensed down. And the biggest difference was we had a lower low with no follow through and then a higher low, a bit of a reversal from back here in terms of how it played out. But the same bounce is now underway. So the question is, do we see continued sustained pressure being put on bears like we saw last time? And most importantly, do we keep higher lows and higher highs going on the way up? Because the last time we did not, and it was easier for the bears to take back over and give it all back because we did not establish supports on the way up. So that's what we're looking at for the broader stock market. And again, just to show the chart, BTC USD divided by NAS 100 USD. This shows us how is the Bitcoin trading relative to the NASDAQ. We traded sideways for a good bit. It is a very clear, wow, it's Friday. Thanks for sticking with me. It is a very clear bear break of this tightening sideways range. So the NASDAQ that I was pointing out on the daily time frame and how it was similar to last time around, we had this bounce last time around, and then we saw the 2.5 week bull move, and it's a very similar pattern here. And now this bounce is getting started, and the big question is, do we see the same thing? Or are we able to change trends and see follow through and build supports on the way up? So the Bitcoin NASDAQ chart is showing us the very clear bear break, and we're almost at the weakest we have been. If we drop down and break this support level of 217, it'll be the lowest, it'll be the weakest Bitcoin has been comparative to the NASDAQ in almost 1 year. So we are seeing, it's always a question of where is money flowing? And obviously over the last couple months, money's been flowing out of markets. Money has been leaving markets. It's been going into some sectors like the energy sector, like oil, but for the most part, it's been flowing out. So now we're seeing some money flowing back into markets, but clearly it's going back into the NASDAQ and the S&P 500 and not into the cryptocurrency space. So we're going to continue to watch these charts, these correlation charts, these ratio charts. They are going to tell us, help us identify where is money flowing, in or out. Another way, we could look at total. So total market cap in crypto is still dropping off. So again, this shows money leaving for me. So Bitcoin had the bear break of its sideways range with no follow through, but obviously we're not breaking bull. And I am watching this support line. Generally, I don't like to cut off price action. Like this price action is being significantly cut off by the line that I just drew. But I'm more interested in the price action since we got range bound and started trading sideways. And I'm watching this resistance line. And here we are testing support again. We just had a bear break, a 4-hour lower high and lower low. So every single bounce that we've seen in the last 2 days has resulted in a 4-hour lower high. So lower high, lower high, lower high. Next time we bounce, if it's under 29.3 thousand, it's just another lower high. So again, keep it very simple. The bulls just aren't proving anything to us. And they have to prove something to us to gain confidence and try and It's almost like they need to advertise to us, hey, bring your money on over to Bitcoin. And they do that with an uptrend. They do that with strength. And right now they're not doing that. So bears are remaining in control. 28,000 is support. If 28,000 breaks, really, I'm just looking down at psychological numbers. 27,000 from back here, 26, 25.3. So clear 4-hour downtrend is our guide right now. We have a long weekend. I'm expecting, things to slow down this weekend. And on Monday in the US here, we have a holiday, so stock markets will be closed. So we can anticipate, most likely, we'll see less volatility on Monday than we normally do when markets open. But again, looking at this daily chart, if you want to make it as simple as possible, we're bearish if daily EMA 12 is resistance because we keep rejecting. The dominance chart, remember how long we've been talking about this pattern is key. This equilibrium is extremely important. When it breaks, it's going to give us a bunch of information. I could not tell you that this would break bull, but I could tell you and did tell you that if this breaks bull, the most likely scenario means crypto is dropping and altcoins are dropping faster. How did we know that would be taking place? Because the relationship between Bitcoin and altcoins for the last 2+ years, generally speaking, if the dominance chart is going up, it means crypto is weak and alts are dropping faster. So now the question is, how much follow through do we see? We've got two levels here, 47.7 and 48.9. And if we get over those levels, there's a whole bunch of space up here. But again, it just shows us on the monthly perspective that right now, Bitcoin dominance comparative to the entire crypto space is the highest that it's been in the last 6 months. And that is because money is leaving crypto, but it's leaving altcoins a lot faster than Bitcoin. So we are in a breakout on the dominance chart. Ethereum, clear bear break, even more so than Bitcoin. Here we are testing the 1700 low. If 1700 breaks, you can see all this action at 1700. If 1700 breaks, 1545 is the next level that I'm looking at. We can bounce 10% from here and just be looking for a daily lower high. The other factor about all of this, again, we have to remind ourselves we are not oversold in any meaningful way. There are definitely some levels that are oversold, but Bitcoin is not oversold on the daily. It's not oversold on the 12-hour, not on the 4-hour, not on the hourly. So that always is a reminder for me, we can definitely see another leg down. We're not at historical extremes. We've been a lot more beat up many, many times. So that's always, look at this. We can't drop any lower. We've been weak for however many weeks. Get that thought right at your head because we can always drop lower. That's the way to approach markets to ensure we protect ourselves. So ensure we don't get blindsided. Oh man, I thought there was no way we could see another leg down. Next thing you know, it's 10% lower. We have to protect against that possibility. So Ethereum is weak. The daily RSI is getting oversold, absolutely. But that daily RSI also just dropped down to the low 20s a couple weeks ago. Weekly RSI close to oversold, stair-step pattern with a lower high every single week for 8 weeks in a row now, 2 entire months of red. Keeping an eye on that pattern. Again, we'll be due for weekly bounces. I was saying the same thing for a lot of places in the stock market. The biotech sector was crushed on the weekly. We knew we were due for a weekly bounce. IWM was another one. This is the growth names, the higher risk, higher reward stock sector ETF. It's got its weekly bounce clearly underway. So obviously crypto is not participating. One thing that we often see in markets when there's fear everywhere is that you see confidence return to places like Apple and Amazon and the places that people are going to, trust first, proven track record. And then you see, okay, clearly, if we get to a point, clearly our bottom is in, the fear bottom is in for a while, then you start to see laggards, the higher risk, higher reward places act as laggards. And we see that in the crypto space as well, when, Bitcoin will make a big time bull move up, and then we'll see the altcoins act as laggards and play catch up very quickly. That happens often. And so you see a bull move in the bigger, more trustworthy places, and then you see the higher risk laggards. When you see people look like, you get to the point where it's okay, well, where can I put money into something that hasn't popped yet? Because you reach a point where you go from fear to FOMO very quickly, And it's too early to say whether that's happening in the stock market or not, but we're definitely going to watch for it. And we would look for places that have not seen bull moves yet to act as laggards. So ETH extremely weak. And again, we were watching this ETH BTC monthly chart for the last 4 months saying we need to be cautious of this. And it has happened. It is the head and shoulders that has put us now in a monthly downtrend for the first time in multiple years. It's a very notable shift. So we are now in a downtrend on the monthly, weekly, and daily time frame on ETH BTC, which means it's going to take a very long time, pending some surprise major news catalyst, it's going to take a very long time for Ethereum to regain uptrends on all these time frames relative to Bitcoin. It is a notable shift. The past few weeks, the notable shifts that have taken place have been the dominance, weekly equilibrium tightening up for a year, breaking out, and the ETH BTC head and shoulders playing out. And they both show us the same thing, which is altcoin comparative weakness. Doge, let's look at Doge. Doge has this gimme play for bears where if you pump on an Elon tweet, short it. As long as it keeps working, and it keeps working in the recent past. So here's an example where we have now pulled back, what is that, 20% from that high? Granted, it's very short-lived, and you're only going to catch that if you're at the computer ready and waiting. It's only 10%. Bad math. So bears are going to take that every time. Next time we bounce, we're going to anticipate an hourly lower high is going to be the most likely result of that bounce. But that's just if Elon's tweeting about Doge and it rips on that tweet, that is a short signal. It was only, again, you had 2 minutes to nail it. Otherwise, it pulled back pretty notably from that high very shortly after. And people are getting used to it, obviously. And the more people get used to it, it'll eventually stop working. And you'll eventually get too many people shorting that pop and they'll get trapped. But not yet. Sand has a nice 4-hour equilibrium to be keeping an eye on. We'll do an altcoin rundown here and then I'll answer any questions. But Sand has a nice tightening pattern to be keeping an eye on where we have our big bull move, big pullback, big bounce, higher low, lower high, support of 125 must hold to remain within the equilibrium. If it does, we then anticipate another lower high compared to 137 on the next bounce to continue to tighten up. So this is one where if we hold this support and set a higher low, we know that Sand is likely to give us volatility later into the weekend because this pattern will break this weekend if we set this 4-hour higher low today. So something to be keeping an eye on for some eventual volatility. So again, one thing that I do when I'm sitting down at the computer on the morning and getting my bearings of who's doing what and where we stand, I'll just show you an example of what I did this morning, where I just look at every single name on my list. And when I already know what Bitcoin looks like, and then I look at every single individual name, it only takes me 5 seconds per ticker to see who's doing something similar and who's doing something different. So what I did this morning as I went down the list was just finding the altcoins that had dropped to a 4-hour lower low at that point. Hey, the altcoins that had dropped to the 4-hour lower low at that point, and then the altcoins that had not. And obviously that's changed because I did that, man, it's already 8 hours ago. But that's a way that I get my bearings. Okay, who's standing out stronger? Who's standing out weaker? Is everybody doing the same thing? Are there any notable differences? So now as we look at the 4-hour time frame and just go on down the list, I can see, okay, AXS, clear 4-hour downtrend. As long as those 4-hour lower highs keep forming, the bears have complete control. SOL, same thing. AVAX, same thing. So I just look at every single name, okay, doing very similar things. Lows of the day being tested on a lot of these altcoins. ENS, already I can see we're at a fresh low of the day. Every single coin that I just looked at before ENS has not hit a fresh low of the day yet. We still have that 4-hour support from the morning. So I would say ENS is a lead bear, having already broken support. Matic, still holding, trying to form 4-hour higher lows. FTT, broke to a lower low. Granted, we're not seeing much follow through, so I would be keeping an eye out for the potential of a falling wedge on FTT. And again, what drives me to search for a falling wedge The premise is bear breaks that lack follow through. So I draw this. I don't necessarily need to act on this, but if we bounce over the next few hours, that tells me, yes, this is a valid pattern that you should be keeping an eye on into the weekend. And we'll still look for an hourly lower high compared to 27.61, but that would tell me you're on the right track. Keep an eye on that. So FTT, bear break, but no real follow through. SHIB, trying for the 4-hour higher low. Binance's, or I should say Theta, is a nice equilibrium here. Just a tightening 4-hour range heading back towards support. Binance, space for a 4-hour higher low. So just with this rundown, I know I don't like any bear entries right now. If I'm doing anything, I'm making an entry for a 4-hour higher low. And that's only the most aggressive bulls. Otherwise, I'm patiently waiting. Patient bears are going to be waiting for all these names to give us 12-hour lower highs as a result of any bounce. So again, we can just go on down the list and say, okay, we got tons of space for 12-hour lower highs to be the result of the next bounce. So I don't like any bear entries here. We want to be shorting and entering bearish on the bounces, anticipating the lower highs, as opposed to on the bear breaks at this point. Doge, XRP heading down towards the low. Sushi's got some space to try the 4-hour higher low. OMG has space for a 4-hour higher low after one of the more significant bounces. Let's go to the 2-hour time frame. This is an inverse head and shoulders setup. Left shoulder, head, right shoulder. And again, all that's showing us is a downtrend trying to change to a higher low and higher high if it confirms. But OMG has more space than most names to look for that 4-hour higher low. And of course, we can be looking at our BTC pairings as well for clues. DOT, a lot of space for a 4-hour higher low. I drew this broadening megaphone from this morning, and looks like I didn't draw the ideal resistance line, but it's still in play for me. Support break with no follow through, resistance break with no follow through, megaphone. But I would anticipate a 4-hour higher low compared to 856 to be more likely than not on the current initial consolidation. So just with this quick rundown, I know that Bitcoin is showing a lot of weakness, but I am anticipating, shouldn't say anticipating, I would only be looking for a bull entry in the short term if I were real aggressive. Otherwise, I am waiting for a longer term time frame to be scouting a lower high bear entry. And Bitcoin is weak. We'll be watching for an hourly lower high to be the result of the next bounce from here. And that's all I want to say. What do you got? TRX. So again, we already know what everybody looks like. So TRX, we're just going to get a different, slightly different version of that. Well, I guess it's a good bit different because of the bull move. So I'm viewing this as big picture. We got a low, a high, a higher low, and a lower high. We're going to scout a higher low compared to 63. There's a ton of space for that to form, but it's just a tightening weekly range right now. Whether you're watching it on the daily or the weekly. So bulls really want a daily higher low to be set as fast as possible. To do that, they need a 4-hour trend change back in their favor. We have a clear 4-hour downtrend. We're heading towards support of 7.8. If 7.8 breaks, the 4-hour downtrend continues. If we hold that level, it's the first step towards attempting to change the trend back to, I should say, to set the daily higher low. I'd be keeping an eye on this just as a visual guide. Plenty of touches on this support line. Handful of touches on resistance. So this would be a visual guide for me as we consolidate. I know I'm scouting a daily higher low, but there's no sign that it's forming yet. FTM. Definitely want to break that low of 341 that is being tested right now. But again, there's some falling wedges out here where if we do break this level and we don't follow through, short-term bears need to be a bit cautious because we are seeing some of these charts show us some bear exhaustion. So if we do not break and get follow through under 3415, we're going to look for an hourly bounce. Granted, we're going to look for an hourly lower high, but this is a potential falling wedge to be keeping an eye on into the weekend. But it's all about this 341 test right now to see whether or not we get follow through. Why didn't Bitcoin bounce like the S&P and the NASDAQ? Honestly, just keep it as simple as possible. Because people shorted, took out a key support level from our sideways range. It triggered stop losses. And that triggered, it's shorts jumping in, it triggers longs to sell, and we clearly break bear. And it just set the stage where if we had held that support, in my opinion, right now, if we had held Bitcoin support that morning, yesterday morning, Bitcoin would probably be trading in the low to mid 30,000s right now. 30 meaning 30.5 or so, at least. But it's almost like, imagine the way it played out for me. It's as if you're at a race. You got a running race. Everybody's in the starting blocks and ready for the gun to go off to start the market open. And as everybody's getting ready and in their position, you take one of the runners, Bitcoin, and you move them back 10 yards and saying, okay, now we're ready for the open. Bell rings, everybody takes off at the same time. Bitcoin absolutely benefited from the broader market bounce, but they benefited after being 10 yards behind because the bear break took place pre-market. And so now they are just constantly behind. And we have a bearish correlation. We have a bearish correlation to the broader market. Bitcoin is not positioned well if we see any daily consolidation in the broader market from here. So again, we just got to call it like it is because that's exactly what's taking place. And regardless of whether or not it's what we want to be happening, that is what's happening. There is a bearish correlation. There's very little to say bullish about the chart right now. I mean, we're holding 28,000. That's one thing we could say. We're not breaking the low of the year, but the bulls are not present. When looking at a descending or ascending wedge, it looks like I don't always take wicks into account. That's how I draw trend lines. I always use the real bodies of the candles, especially with wedges. Wedges, by definition, break levels with no follow through. So I would rather go on the real bodies of the candles so that bull breaks over a trend line, have time to fall back down within that trend line. And again, we got the YouTube video drawing support and resistance levels that goes into that more in depth as to why I draw that way. Ape. So 8 bears in full control. 4-hour lower high is 590. Nope, it's 643. And it's all about 517 support, which is approaching. And again, you got to be real cautious on a coin like this. I don't know much about the fundamentals, but what I do know is that it was a hype name that ran up into their land event, and it was a new thing, and it was a shiny object. But now that we're, this bearish, just got to be cautious of, I mean, we've already seen it. How much have we pulled back in the last month? But just got to be cautious because it doesn't have the foundation that so many other altcoins do have in terms of, the length of time they've been around and the amount of levels that they've established on the way up over the last few years. So if things stay weak, there's nothing saying Ape can't drop back down towards levels that we only saw on its first day of trading. Doesn't mean it will, but again, a name like this, I can't treat it like everybody else. It's in its own category because of how recent. I mean, it's just like an IPO, an initial stock offering. It just hasn't been established. It doesn't have the same kind of support and resistance levels. Certainly a lot more volatile, you know that. MARA and MSTR. So why are the crypto stocks going up and Bitcoin is going down? I mean, look at Coin. Coin is doing exactly what Bitcoin did, but the opposite. They're correlating with the NASDAQ. They're doing what the Bitcoin bulls were hoping and wishing that Bitcoin would be doing on a broader market bounce. So they are absolutely correlating to the NASDAQ. That's why they're going up. And Bitcoin is not. I can't say why Bitcoin is not, aside from the fact that people shorted and sold longs to take out that support right before this broader market bounce got going. And it's just the example that I just gave of the starting blocks for the race. Coins over here and the NASDAQ's over here, they didn't get moved back. Coin stayed in its starting block while Bitcoin got moved back 10 yards. AAVE So 4-hour clear downtrend, lower high, anything under 98.30. We just dropped to the lower low. Granted, if we do not see follow through, it's another one where we can draw a falling wedge as a potential setup here. The key is we have to see this hourly bounce pretty much when the stock market closes or into the close. Have to see this hourly bounce for a lot of these falling wedges to stay valid. Bigger picture. We are looking for a daily high or low. I would say anything above 79.20 is a daily high or low. But no sign of it shaping up as we are at the low of consolidation currently. Is our group more of a teaching group? Yes, absolutely. That is the purpose of it. Hex, I don't know where you find the volume and liquidity on Hex to trade it, because everywhere that I look for it, it's just not there. I guess we got some volume. Even then, this volume is nothing. I mean, it's a huge volume candle, but it's not even. I mean, 1 million coins traded would be $60,000. So it's trading what, $30,000 on a huge volume day? I'm sure there's places that have better volume, but still, that's the number one reason I've had zero interest ever in this name is volume. There we go. Okay, millions. That's a lot better. So 1 million being, let's call it 65,000. 10,650,000. So we've got, again, it's just a few million. It's less than $5 million traded. So it does not have a whole bunch of liquidity. And a lot of these names have gaps, or I should say a lot of these charts have gaps on the hourly time frame, just showing you that. I mean, the average hourly volume here is $200,000 or so. So definitely a lot harder to trade something that does not have a whole bunch of liquidity. Remember the last time we looked at Hex? I said, Bitcoin has confirmed that monthly bear flag and Hex has not done so yet. So it's definitely holding on better, but it is also definitely a monthly bear flag. And it just was a delayed reaction and rolled over as well. Am I looking for the NASDAQ to top out soonish? I'm not. Doesn't mean it will. Doesn't mean it won't. But again, I'm comparing it to the last time around. And we just ran over shorts. Granted, bulls used up all of their buying power and then got run right back over. But it's a very similar start to this bounce. So I'm not going to counter this move that the bulls have been waiting for weeks until there are signs that it is topping out. Binance has space for a 4-hour high or low attempt. We're also still in a daily uptrend. So aggressive bulls are looking for a 4-hour high or low compared to 290.60. We have to change the 4-hour trend back to the bulls for a daily high or low to be set. That being said, the size of this pullback will have aggressive bears scouting a daily lower high to be the result of the next bounce. Did anybody get those bearish setups from our last live stream? Highlighted how Binance was shifting from a bull to a bear with the double top. Highlighted that sushi 4-hour rising wedge. I feel like a lot of people aren't used to playing bearish. And so, when I make a clear, point out a clear setup like this and talk about the shift that's taking place, really, it's only, 1 or 2 people acting on it. Wondering how I can better communicate bearish entries for people to take advantage of. RSI, SPX versus SPX 500 USD. For RSI, I'd be looking at SPY, and I'd be looking at, they're not that different. I see the same thing on SPX. $52. $52. Awesome, Chris. Glad to help you branch out. So Chris just thanked me for helping nudge him to get to the broader stock market. And if that is you as well, and again, anybody that's all stocks, I push them towards crypto. Anybody that's all crypto, I push them towards stocks to have that opportunity. Less so with the correlation, but there were points in times where this sector had a ton of opportunity. Now stocks have a ton of opportunity. So if that is you, we've got a video, crypto to stocks chart guys. It's like an hour-long video of transitioning from trading crypto to trading stocks and what the differences are and different little nuances that you need to be aware of if making that transition. Thanks for the likes, everyone. Let's get that to 100, please. Trying to catch up here. There's a lot of you. I thought it was going to be a slow Friday before the holiday weekend, but you're all out in full force. Strong close of the stock market can only help crypto. It certainly can't hurt crypto, but again, it's just being ignored at the moment. Hey, Lemmy. I'm keeping an eye on MNMD. Have to see a break of the daily resistance that's approaching. Welcome aboard, Captain Planet. Glad to hear Tiffany. I never, I can have rough targets where I say, all right, I'll be interested if we get to this level, but I never say, like, if we get to 25,000, I'm buying. Because it depends on how we get there. Is it a free fall drop? Are we just setting daily lower highs and lower lows and cooling off RSI? Is the broader stock market hitting fresh fear lows? So I can't possibly make a blanket statement based on a price without having all the other details. In doing so, I'm limiting the amount of information that is available to me to make trading decisions. Hawk just dove at something. I don't think it got it. I gotta check. Nope. Definitely good to get better at bear entries. The group is good for beginners and experienced. It's a little advanced a lot of the time, but we have channels that are specific for beginners questions, and we're making a bit of a pivot as we design our new website to have a portal specifically for the really, really early beginners, but everybody's at different stages and everybody's helping each other out. Dollar, I'm expecting a bounce in the dollar here in the short term. Had this 4-hour falling wedge. Still rejecting. So keeping an eye on this. We did see bulls defend support, but we did reject from resistance. It's a nice and clear hourly equilibrium. If it breaks bull, we're going to zoom out and scout a daily lower high to be the result of that bounce. The weekly EMA 12 is approaching. But this is the weakest the dollar has been in months. There's no doubt about that. And the 10-year as well. You can always rewind if you missed the stream. Saw my first baby turkey today. Just one little guy. Should be a lot more soon. Would I take partial profit now on the NASDAQ? It depends on what your game plan was when initiating the trade. I grabbed a little NVDA pre-market and I sold some definitely early, but that dropped my, I felt like I was chasing, and by selling some, I dropped my break even from the 181s now down to the 180 or the 179s, which gives me a lot of breathing room. So I like that style just to be able to be in full control and try and let a trade play out longer without going back into the red to try and let it play out. But that depends on position sizing as well. If I know I'm going to sell a partial position fairly quickly, then I will use a larger position size. Glad to hear, Aaron. I keep losing my place. I do play wedges on all time frames. Ideally, when the longer term time frame is aligning to make it the most likely scenario. If you're in a weekly and daily uptrend and you have an hourly falling wedge looking for a daily higher low, the probability of that hourly falling wedge breaking bullish is so much higher than if you're in a weekly and daily downtrend with an hourly falling wedge. It's not the same setup. It's the same pattern, but it's in a different place on the trend. One of them continues the trends that are going, and one of them is counter trend. CROUSD, wow, that is brutal. It's ugly. Daily lower highs, EMA 12 resistance. 1436 is the next support level. Stair step drop of a lower high 4 weeks in a row. So again, keep it simple. If daily EMA 12 is resistance, the bears are comfy. And we are testing that 1678 low right now. We just broke it. Absolutely, KJ. No baby ducks. They're probably in another pond. There's like 6 different ponds in the immediate area. I did see one baby duck for a day or two. And I get the males. The male ducks will come by every now and again. But no females and no babies, which is a lot different from other years when having, 8 babies stay in the pond. But they're being raised in different ponds. Glad to have you, Crypto Juggler. It's definitely hard. I mean, it's hard to buy entries when the QQQ just goes straight up like this because it just leaves bulls in the dust where we don't even get hourly consolidation. We got some at the end of the day yesterday, but really you got to be zoomed in to short-term time frames here. There were a couple bounces. XBI today bounced off the 15-minute EMA 12. I was actually short for this, but I covered a decent chunk of my position at that EMA. So just have to use shorter term time frames, because oftentimes, again, we go so quickly from fear to FOMO and from FOMO to fear that it doesn't often play out in the nice and clear way that you would like, where you pull back and then you get your daily high or low attempt and then you keep going. And again, that happened last time where it just ran over bears in a mini short squeeze and bulls were just left in the dust. A bull waiting for daily consolidation just had no chance to get any position. It's possible, Daniel, if you're working around a full-time job and you're really new, we have plenty of content on YouTube. So I would say, peruse our YouTube channel, because there are hours and hours. I mean, there's 7,000, 8,000 videos. Obviously, a lot of them fall out of relevancy, but go through the intro to TA course that's on here, and then you've got your whole playlist of lessons and more, how I trade, crypto breakdowns, different wedges, and just treat one topic at a time. Like, okay, today's fibs. I'm going to spend, if I got some time on the weekend, I'm going to spend 3 hours on fibs right now. And I'm going to take notes. And if I get it, okay, I'll move on to the next thing. But if I still am not really sure, I'm going to keep digging. I'm going to look up YouTube videos. I'm going to look up articles. I'm going to review my notes to make sure it's burning into my brain. I'm going to start looking for them on charts, just scaling through different charts. I'm going to pull up the Apple chart and pull off a bunch of different time frames. Can I spot a falling wedge that ended up playing out? Can I spot a rising wedge? These are ways that we teach ourselves. And that is how I did it. Just one topic at a time. It's way too overwhelming. Got to go one rabbit hole at a time. And then each little individual piece of the puzzle comes together to make a big picture. But that takes a lot of time for everything to start clicking. What's the story behind the huge geode? Not much of a story. I've got a friend who does rocks. She's got a store in town. And so I just got a bunch of stuff from her. One of the things I like to do with profit is support friends' small businesses. So even for things I don't need, I'll just buy something from one business and give it to somebody else, give it to a different friend. So I can help a friend out by supporting their business and help another friend out by giving a birthday present or whatever it is. All right, we're wrapping it up here. It's Friday. It's impossible to trade for a living. I should introduce you to some friends of mine. All right, I appreciate you all tuning in. I hope you have a great weekend. It's a long one. Looking forward to getting some yard work done. Let's see, weekend content. I'll probably put something out. Some of the different style of videos recently that have just been me talking in the yard. Maybe something like my highest high as a trader, my lowest low, my proudest moment. Those would be some good little stories.